Hi, in this session we will study the different types of circulatory systems seen in the animal kingdom. Now in the animal kingdom there are two types of circulatory systems, the single circulatory system and the double circulatory system. Well, let us look into the images right in front of us. Now in this image right here, to the left hand side we have a fish and the circulatory system of a fish, and on the right hand side we have a mammal, a panda, and the circulatory system of a giant panda. Now the panda is a mammal, right? Let us just see the pathway taken up by the blood in the circulatory system of the fish. Also let us have the look at the components. The heart. So the circulatory system of the fish has a heart here, and blood vessels, a lot of capillaries, blood vessels, capillaries, and again the heart. Now if we look at the heart has only two chambers, a single auricle and a single ventricle. Now the auricle receives deoxygenated blood or venous blood from the body. These capillaries down here actually represent the whole of the body of the fish wherever the capillaries are present, right? So these are the capillaries of the body, and the oxygen has been used up by the body, and the deoxygenated blood drains into the body, into the capillaries of the body, and these capillaries are bringing the deoxygenated blood to the auricle. So there is nothing as a left or a right auricle, there is just one auricle. Now the single auricle, the function of the auricle is to receive the blood, right? And the auricle then pumps the blood into the ventricle, a single ventricle. The ventricle pumps the blood, and the blood then moves towards the gills, the pulmonary system, the gills of the fish. And the gills of the fish are very close to the heart. So the heart is somewhere here and the gills are here, right? Now so the blood has reached the gills. So these are the gill capillaries. You can also call them the pulmonary capillaries or the gill capillaries. Now the blood is oxygenated and the blood travels back. The oxygenated blood travels back to the body so that the oxygen and nutrients etc. can be supplied to the various tissues in different parts of the body. And once the oxygen and the nutrients have been depleted and the blood is enriched with carbon dioxide and wastes, the blood again moves back to the heart. So what do we see in the case of fish? In its journey, the blood, and during a single trip, the blood visits the heart only once. Let us just see what is the case in case of mammals and birds. Right. So now this is the heart of mammals or birds, which is a 4-chambered heart. Now birds and mammals have a 4-chambered heart. Fish has a 2-chambered heart. Now we've studied the 4-chambered heart in greater details in our previous lesson. Let us just start with the left auricle or the left atrium. The left atrium receives oxygenated blood from the lungs. So let us just start from here. Let me use a different colored marker. Let's use this mustard yellow and a thinner marker, and let us just start a journey from here. Let us see how many times the blood visits the heart before completing one trip across the circulatory system. In case of fish, we saw that the blood, to complete its journey, a single trip across the circulatory system, the blood visits the heart only once. Is it the case here in case of mammals and birds also? Let us have a look. So let us start our journey from the auricle. We have oxygenated blood here in the auricle. From the auricle, the blood is pumped into the ventricle, the left ventricle. From the left ventricle, it goes to the aorta, the major arteries, other major arteries, and then the blood is pumped to all parts of the body, right, to the system. So the system of the body, or the entire body, makes up the system. Now the blood is supplied to the inferior part of the body or the superior part of the body. Don't be misguided by the direction of this blood vessel downwards, that it is supplying to the lower parts. It is supplying to all the parts of the body. And here these capillaries, they represent all the capillaries, whether in the superior part of the body or the inferior part of the body. So oxygenated blood is supplied to the entire body, and once the oxygen is depleted, the capillaries also collect the deoxygenated blood, and eventually they make the venules and the veins and larger veins, and eventually all of that blood is collected right? And this blood is now coming back. And where does this blood go to? It goes to the inferior and superior vena cava, which have not been shown here, but this common vein represents both. And this deoxygenated blood now enters the right auricle, right? So the journey started from the left auricle. Let's just write this part down. So in case of mammals, the journey starts from the left auricle to the body to left auricle to the ventricle. Let's forgot to write that out. So left auricle to the left ventricle. From the left ventricle, the blood moves to the body. The deoxygenation of the blood takes place. Oxygen has been utilized. From the body, the deoxygenated blood reaches the right auricle, and from the right auricle, the blood moves into the right ventricle. So let's write right ventricle. And from the right ventricle, now the blood is pumped via the pulmonary artery to the lungs. Pulmonary. And the pulmonary artery will take the blood to the lungs, inside the lungs into the alveoli, where there are like zillions of capillaries around, across like zillions of alveoli, right? So now here what happens, inside the alveoli, the deoxygenated blood gets oxygenated, right? Now in my previous video, I had informed you that any time blood passes through the capillaries, the blood pressure drops drastically. However, it must be remembered that the position of the human heart and the lungs, the left lung and the right lung, is not too far away. It's not too far away. So the blood is sent to the left lung and to the right lung with an immense amount of pressure generated by the right ventricle. So the blood goes there. But now, after the gaseous exchange, after passing through the capillaries, the blood pressure drops. And what happens is something very interesting in case of mammals and birds. Now the blood, unlike in fish, the oxygenated blood moves to the body in the fish, but in case of mammals and birds, now the blood travels back to the auricle. The oxygenated blood travels back to the left auricle. And this is the point where we started our journey from. Right, so let us just complete this particular diagram once again with this particular flow chart. The blood starts its journey from the left auricle. You can start it from anywhere, but for our convenience, we are starting from the left auricle. So left auricle to the left ventricle to the body via the blood vessels, and from the body back to the right auricle, right ventricle, right auricle, right ventricle to the lungs. And from the lungs again back to the left auricle. Now, how is this pathway, the path followed by the blood in mammals and birds, different from the path followed by the blood in fish? How is it different? It is different in this very interesting fact, which is, and let's use a red marker to highlight this out, that the blood visits the heart twice before completing its journey. So the blood started its journey from the left auricle, somewhere here. In order to come back to the same position, so this is heart and this is heart, right? So the blood visits heart once, and then it goes to the body, and then again it comes back to the heart, which is the second stop, and then it goes to the lungs and comes back to the same point after. And during this during this single trip across the circulatory system, the blood has visited the heart twice, once here and once here, right? So such a circulatory system in which blood, in order to complete one journey across the circulatory system, visits the heart twice, is called a double circulatory system. So here we have it, the double circulation, or the double circulatory system. And the circulatory system in which the blood to complete during its visit through the body once, visits the heart only once, is called a single circulatory system. This is also known as single circulation. Right now, there are certain tremendous advantages of having a double circulatory system. We'll look into it very soon, but I just hope that this aspect, this difference or the definition of a double circulatory system or double circulation is clear to you, and the definition or the meaning of single circulation and single circulatory system is clear to you. Let us just ponder over the definition for a little while. Now, how do we define a double or a single circulatory system? Let us look at a single circulatory system. To complete one trip around the circulatory system, the blood visits the heart once. The blood visits the heart once in case of single circulatory system. In double circulatory system, to complete one trip around the circulatory system, the blood visits the heart twice. Right? Twice. You can start the journey from anywhere. Let us say this time, let's start the journey from the right auricle. The blood is right here. Let us see, before coming back to the same point, how many times the blood visits the heart. So here the blood goes to the auricle, the ventricle, the lungs. So this is the first time it had visited the heart here, and now from the lungs it comes back to the heart again. So this is the second time it has visited the heart. Then it goes to the body and comes back to the original position. So to complete this one trip across the circulatory system, the blood has visited the heart twice, and this is called a double circulatory system. Right? Single circulatory system, not complicated at all. The journey, the one-way trip. This is a trip. This is the round trip, starting from here and coming back to the same same spot. This round trip, a single round trip, involves the single visit to the heart. Right. Now, is there any advantage of this? Well, certainly there is a wonderful advantage of this system. Now, let us have a look at the difference. Another of the differences. In a double circulatory system, the blood pressure is comparatively much higher compared to the blood pressure in a single circulatory system. Right, now let us see what happens in the fish. When the blood is pumped, it goes to the gills. When the blood is pumped from the heart here to the gills, the pressure is good, it is very high. But once it reaches the gills, there are so many capillaries, and what happens across the capillaries? There is a drop in blood pressure. Now with that dropped blood pressure, the blood moves at a lower pressure to the different parts of the body. When I say there is a lower blood pressure, I mean the speed of the flow of blood is also less. If the speed of the flow of blood is less, there is a slower transport of material. There is a slow delivery of oxygen. There is a slower delivery of nutrients. There is a slower removal of carbon dioxide. There is a slower removal of wastes from the body. In case of animals that possess a single circulatory system. On the contrary, mammals and birds, we have very high energy demands. Let us use a new slide. Now, mammals and birds have a very high energy demand because we are homoeotherms. We are homoeotherms, which means we are warm-blooded animals. We are warm-blooded animals, and fish is a poikilotherm. Poikilotherm. I'm sorry for the marker. Now, the fish is a poikilotherm, which means it's a cold-blooded animal. And what does that mean? It means a homoeotherm, an animal which is a warm-blooded animal, is able to maintain its body temperature. We human beings maintain our body temperature close to 37 degrees. Right, and this has certain advantages to us. Our enzymes work at this particular temperature, and we perform much better. Our metabolic activities are much better performing. Whereas in case of poikilotherms, for example, reptiles, and we've got the amphibians and we've got the fish. Now, these particular animals are cold-blooded, which means they are dependent on the temperature of the surrounding. If the surrounding temperatures are higher, their body temperature raises. If the surrounding temperature gets cooled down, their body temperature lowers down. And so their metabolic rate is variable. It is at the mercy of the temperature of the surroundings, right? So this is a massive advantage to the homeotherms, we are metabolically much active. Now, warm-blooded animals, in order to stay warm, fine, we have an advantage of staying warm. But again, to stay warm, you will require a lot of oxygen. You will require a lot of glucose. Now, if we were to be cold-blooded animals, if we had a single circulatory system, our huge demand of oxygen, our huge demand of energy, our huge demand of removal of waste and carbon dioxide could not have been met. The single circulatory system is not as efficient as a double circulatory system in supplying the nutrients and oxygen and in removing the waste and carbon dioxide generated due to metabolic activities. So this is the supporting advantage of a double circulatory system over a single circulatory system. Let us just have a look here. So the advantage of a double circulatory system is a higher blood pressure, thus higher rate of material exchange. If the blood pressure is very high, if the blood is moving really fast through the system, the speed rate means the speed of material exchange, the diffusion of oxygen into the tissue, the removal of carbon dioxide from the tissue, the supply of nutrients to the tissue, the removal of wastes from the tissue is much higher due to high blood pressure. Also, if we have a higher blood pressure, our higher energy needs, our higher metabolic demands are met with greater ease. So this is all about double circulatory system and a single circulatory system, and here we have the definitions of a double circulatory system and a single circulatory system, and also these are the advantages of a double and a single circulatory system. Now let us take an opportunity to look into the different types of hearts seen in the animal kingdom. Now this is another subtopic that is related to the circulatory system. Now in the animal kingdom we have three types of heart. We see three types of hearts. We see a two-chambered heart, a two-chambered heart, as we just saw in case of fish, right? So fish they possess a two-chambered heart, which means they only have a single auricle and a single ventricle out here, right? In case of certain other animals, such as the reptiles and the amphibians. Reptiles are snakes, etc., and lizards, and amphibians like frogs, etc. Now, in case of reptiles and amphibians, they possess a three-chambered heart. They have a single ventricle. They just have one ventricle, but they have two auricles: the right auricle and the left auricle. Now, the auricles function in the same way as in case of humans, which means the left auricle in amphibians receives oxygenated blood and the right auricle receives deoxygenated blood. However, there is only a single ventricle, which means there is an absence of septum. Right, if you do not know what septum is, you will have to watch one of my videos or any other instruction material on the structure of the human heart. But the septum in case of a three-chambered heart is missing. And what is the consequence of this? Yep, there is definitely a certain degree of mixing of oxygenated and deoxygenated blood. So as the blood gets mixed up, the ventricle does not pump purely oxygenated blood to the body. So yes, any animal which has a three-chambered heart is much more efficient than any animal that has a two-chambered heart with respect to the efficiency of supply of oxygen to the body. Anyways, let us come back to another kind of the heart, which is called the four-chambered heart, which we've studied before in our previous classes, in a previous session. And a four-chambered heart has two auricles, two ventricles, and both the sides, the left and the right and the left hand side of the heart are completely separated by a septum. And the animals that possess a four-chambered heart have the most efficient system of transport within the circulatory system, right? So and for this particular reason, mammals and birds are at a greater advantage. Mammals and birds have a very high energy demand, they have a very high metabolic rate, and in order to compensate for these heavy demands, we have four-chambered heart with complete separation of oxygenated and deoxygenated blood. There's a complete separation. And also what we have is we have wonderful double circulatory system, which increases the pressure, increases the speed of flow of blood. So much about the types of circulatory system and the types of heart seen in the animal kingdom.